Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Synergized, where we meet and hear the experiences, the lessons learned, the successes, and gain advice from leaders in all walks of life. This week, I'm very proud to have a good friend of mine, Dr. Brady Scott, who is an assistant superintendent at a large school corporation in Indiana. Dr. Scott, my friend, thank you so much for agreeing to be here and for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I look forward to it.
Dr. Scott, as I mentioned, is an assistant superintendent in Clay Community Schools, which is a school corporation that includes two high schools on different size ends of the spectrum, but it covers the entire county of Clay County in Indiana. So that's the introduction, Dr. Scott. And you've got a vast amount of experience throughout education, and even before moving into education several years ago at the high school level, in the district office level, and now in another district office aspect. Why don't you just take a moment for our audience who's joining us and just introduce who Brady Scott is?
Well, I thank you. Yes, I am not your traditional straight out of high school to college to teacher prep. I spent 10 years in healthcare before moving into education. Upon moving into education, I then became a science teacher and taught everything from freshman to college level biology courses and anatomy physiology. Was able to move into an assistant athletic director role, which kind of perked my interest into being in administration. During my time, I had been a high school assistant basketball coach for 5 years. After being an assistant athletic director, I moved into a dean of students role. From there to an assistant principal role, moved into a very small school district superintendency role. From there, maybe the smartest person in the building in some aspects, and have now become an assistant superintendent in a much larger district. But some people would say that's the smartest move I've made, to move from the superintendent back to the assistant superintendent. But doesn't stop the train from moving forward. I'm sure at one point we'll be back in that superintendent's chair.
Well, quite the career setting. So talk a little bit about your transition, so to speak, from healthcare into education. Was that a long-term process, considering that you wanted to make that move, or was it something that just kind of hit you at the moment?
Well, really what it was, I did love healthcare when I started it. I felt like that as a team, and when I say team, I mean everybody from office staff to support staff to the physicians. I felt that we were doing really good things and we were really helping people in need. But at 9 years, we had moved from really helping people to more of herding cattle. We were just seeing such a volume of patients, and that speaks to how well our physicians were respected by the community. But what really prompted me to move to education was more of a self-serving move, for lack of a better term. My children were young. They were becoming very active in a lot of activities. When you work in healthcare in the position I was in, you work anywhere from 14 to 16-hour days. And I remember the defining moment of why I moved away from healthcare into education. There was a day when I had to go help one of the surgeons in the OR, and one of my daughters had an activity, and she had asked me if I was going to be able to make it. And I said, no, I'm not going to be able to make that. I've got to go to the hospital. And it hit me. I just told my own child somebody was more important than she was that day. And that was a very eye-opening moment for me. So I moved into education with the thought that schedules would mesh a little more. But I have found that as I climbed into administration, those schedules still mesh a little better than they used to, but I'm still quite busy within what I do.
Yeah, what a great segue, and really hits to the point of, so many of us get stuck with prioritizing our schedule. And, when we do that, there's a lot of things that really, when we look at it, we're prioritizing things that in our heart and soul may not be our priority, so to speak, in that setting. So, you know, I love the concept. Many leadership experts use it, but it's more about scheduling those priority aspects.
Correct. We really, as leaders, especially in my position as one of the district leaders, we do have a great responsibility, and that's to the students and the staff that we serve on a daily basis. But we're not going to be very good at those things if we don't prioritize ourselves as well. And that means that in my world, as busy as I am and as much responsibility as I have and pride I take in doing a good job with our students and staff, if I don't prioritize my family, I'm not going to be very good when I get here.
So, Dr. Scott, when you go back at that point of transition, what worked for you to ensure that that transition was as effective as it could be, moving from one industrial aspect to the field of education? And then maybe what's a lesson you kind of learned that if you had to go back and do it all over again, you could share with someone who may have that type of transition in their future?
It was a bit of a challenging change for me. I was going from a career that I knew very, very well to a career that was brand new. An interesting process I went through. I did my student teaching while teaching a full course load. This was back in the day when you could be hired on an emergency contract and count that towards student teaching. An interesting story of that aspect was the first day I showed up to teach, the principal walked me down to my room and unlocked the door, handed me the keys and said, "The teacher's manuals are on the desk and good luck." And that was a very eye-opening moment. If I could change things, I probably would not have jumped in the deep end so much per se. But in the end, it was probably the greatest thing that could have happened to me, simply because it was sink or swim. I'm not sure how much teaching took place that first year, but there was a whole lot of learning, and it may have been on my side of the coin, learning more from the kids than they learned from me. But in the end, it was probably the greatest year of teaching I ever had as well.
Dr. Scott, you recently just earned your EDD, your educational doctorate piece,
Yes.
and you know your study was an interesting one to me, being a member of your dissertation committee. Actually, this just happened last week, I think, right? So it's still
Correct.
pretty fresh. You
I'm
may
very
not have
fresh.
the new business cards ready yet.
We don't have the new business card. We do have the new letterhead, but we don't have the new business cards yet. It's still a little bit surreal to me that it hasn't quite sunk in yet.
Well, yeah, again, you did a wonderful job with the defense and the writing and the manuscript, but the topic is something, the topic of your study, and then obviously your manuscript, your data analysis is a topic that's probably been at the forefront of review and need for understanding and continual improvement from the conception of university level educator preparation programs. All about your research, that is, how do first year teachers see their preparation? How was their preparation in that piece? Talk a little bit about your study and how you see, maybe has that transformed any over time? Are there still gaps that exist?
So as you said, my study was about how novice or new teachers felt they were prepared by their educator prep program to teach independently that first year. There's always existed a dichotomy in education prep from theory to practice. And I will fully admit that theory is important. If you don't have a grasp of educational theory and educating theory, it's going to be really hard to understand how students learn. However, the best theory will not necessarily alone prepare you to practice your craft of teaching. And by that, I mean just simple things such as classroom management. Are teachers, new teachers, prepared to deal with that? Simple things of understanding social issues our students are facing today: broken families, homelessness, divorced families, things of that nature that a lot of our teachers have never experienced within their life because they come from families that are well-oiled families and well put together families. So that's a new thing for them. Understanding cultural differences of both your classroom and your community. Many of our new teachers are going to the communities where they're the new person and understanding those cultural impacts. Two really big ones, three really big ones actually, that I asked in my study. Did teachers feel they were prepared to deal with the mental health and emotional issues students are facing today? Because that's just going to continue to be an ever-present problem we're going to have to address with our youth. And then kind of tied together, are you prepared to deal with special education students, as well as English language learners and English second language learners, which are very closely tied? I just felt those were things that I wanted to know, were they prepared for? And my study showed that there was a statistical significance, which is a fancy way of saying, yeah, they didn't feel they were fully prepared in those key areas to teach their first year.
Yeah, interesting. And I know more and more universities in those educator preparation programs are focusing on getting their students, future educators, out in the classrooms much earlier, even as early as their first term, whether it's through field experience, observation, some one-on-one type of tutoring or counseling in that aspect. Talk a bit about your experiences in education and those first year teachers that maybe you've seen get that early career experience versus those that you've seen that really haven't had that experience.
Yeah, it's changed a little over the years and not changed much at all. I think that we still need to get young teachers experience, and not even teachers, students who want to be teachers. We need to get them into the classroom even earlier, as much as possible. And I think there's maybe even an aspect where they need to take it upon themselves to go job shadow, go ask if you can sit and watch a class. Just sitting and watching, you'll gain some valuable knowledge, but in the end, we need to get these young teachers practicing their craft much sooner. Having been a coach, I would never take my team and throw them on the floor and say, go get them, without having practiced what we're planning to do. I think sometimes we do that with our young teachers. We throw them in the classroom and say, okay, go for it and do what you do and teach, without ever having the opportunity to have practiced that craft and develop those skills. You can learn a lot from watching good teachers. You can learn a lot from watching bad teachers, but as students, you've got to figure out what the difference is between that good and bad teaching, so you know what to pick up and what to put away. But I just think there is no replacement for experience and practice of your craft.
Thank you. Very well said. And as you're talking, something else that jumps out at me, a lot of what's embedded kind of in the white space there, Dr. Scott, with your experiences with those first year and even probably second year type of instructors. But, it seems like, and, no study on this piece, but one of the things in my career, particularly in the public education, there seems to be just an acceptance that we'll just continuously learn the same lessons over and over and over and over. And yet in our society, there's a focus on lessons learned that basically says, value-wise, we should value our lessons. The mistakes we made are opportunities to grow forward. But should we have to learn the same mistakes over and over and over? Talk a little bit about your experience. Has education moved the ball a little bit towards the goal line in that regard?
I think it has slightly. I think one of the things that we as in education have to instill upon our educators. I read an interesting book recently by Horatio Sanchez. It's called The Education Revolution. And what was pointed out in the book is, back in the 1950s through as much as the 1970s, you could have taken a functional MRI of a young student in a school, and you would see that they would all look relatively the same, that we could kind of treat every kid the same. New research has shown, if you do that same kind of analysis, our kids are not the same at all. They're very different from one another based upon the experiences they've had. I think we have to give our new teachers permission to make mistakes and not to have that fear. We need to give them the permission to be creative, and that will result in mistakes. I live by the phrase, a mistake is only a mistake if you fail to learn from it. And one of the things I feel that we as school administrators, we've got to be there more frequently with them. And we have to be that mentoring personality. We have to take away the fear factor that, oh my gosh, they're going to see that I don't know something. Yeah, you don't know a lot. It's okay. I think we're all well aware of when you go into any profession, you don't know what you don't know, so you don't know what questions to even ask to try to figure it out. The only way you're going to do that is to continue to experiment and experience, and don't be afraid of what will happen. Where I believe that the overwhelming majority of our new students are good people who want to do great things and don't have any malice intent when they do something. So, shoot for the moon and just take those chances and learn something from them.
Dr. Scott, you just, I think what I'm hearing you say is there needs to be more of a focus on an empowered culture for those teachers early in their career, not just the first year teachers.
Absolutely. We need to encourage more of a leadership aspect of every teacher that we have in our buildings. We far too often our teachers feel they simply exist within those four walls. And that's okay if that's the desire they have. But if you're going to exist in those four walls, I need you to be the leader in that room as well. And you are the content expert in the room. And to be able to exhibit that expertise, you have to be the leader of instruction and how things are going to happen. That's not an authoritative role. That's we're gonna go on this journey together. And I'm going to learn as much from you as you're going to learn from me. And we're going to figure out, as Simon Sinek, we're all going to figure out our why. And I think that's crucial. We're going to figure out, and our whys might not match, but if I can help you find your why, then we've gotten to a good place.
Dr. Scott, we're going to leave this episode right there because you've segued perfectly into next week's discussion around leadership, educators, our why, and how all that comes together with the vision in that piece. But God bless you, my friend. I appreciate you. I'm so proud of you. Just appreciate all you do for our children and God's youngest children in education.
Well, thank you. I appreciate everything you do and everything you've done for me to help me on this journey. And I just can't thank you enough.
Well, and we want to thank you, Dr. Scott and I both, for taking this time to join us with this week's episode of Leadership Synergized. We've been hearing from Dr. Brady Scott, an assistant superintendent for Clay Community Schools located in the state of Indiana. Until next week, God bless you. We love you.